Archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of golden era.
Art is the reshaping of reality by man to present it in an understandable way. As the artist recreates the world around him, it is shaped by how he sees it and what he believes in. The Indian artist did not attempt to depict only the material reality around him. He wished to share the complete experience of the moment, not just the photographic presentation of the shapes around him. Beauty for the Indian artist has been a reflection of the glory of God. In fact, for the ancient artist, the experience of beauty, the ecstasy on seeing nature or art which is truly beautiful, has been considered as akin to Brahmanand or the final bliss. Join us on this journey into the heart of the Indian tradition of painting. Come with us to the gorge of the Vaghora river, where Ajanta was created, to the courts of the Mughals and the Deccani Sultans. Journey with us through the deserts of Rajasthan and the icy lands of Ladakh and Lahore Spiti. In the verdant south and in the gentle hills of the north, experience the compassionate view of life that is enshrined in Indian painting.
In ancient times, India produced some of the most sublime art of the world. The tradition of the art of India was deeply connected with the philosophy of this land. The classic art of India presented a sense of the great harmony of the world. These paintings brought to us a great sense of the peace of the spirit. Across the walls of Ajanta were painted bodhisattvas, the seekers of truth. They were set amidst a world full of the beauty of overflowing nature, and yet they looked within. It was this life of the inner self which pervaded the art of ancient India. In the philosophy of India, art had a very important role to play. It was believed that the finest art was made with devotion and a depth of the understanding of the harmony of creation. By looking upon such paintings and sculpture, the viewer was transported, and in that instant he came closer to the great ideal of Brahmanand. Such art, which brought man a glimpse of enlightenment itself, was considered to be one of the greatest treasures of mankind. With the second millennium came the styles of painting of the Buddhist and Jain illustrated manuscripts. In the Pala kingdom of eastern India, vast numbers of Buddhist manuscripts were painted. These were representations of the bodhisattvas and other Buddhist deities. They followed in the graceful and sinuous style of the Ajanta paintings. In the Buddhist philosophy of that period, these paintings had an integral importance in prayer and meditation. The painted deities enshrined the qualities of the Buddha. By meditating deeply upon these, the worshipper was to imbibe those qualities and by doing so become the deity himself. Such was the importance of art in the beginning of the second millennium in India. In the Jain manuscript paintings, there evolved another style of painting. These paintings are vital and lively. They are also more abstracted and stylized. With animated gestures and rhythmic movements, these paintings possess a life of their own. As with the classic paintings of Ajanta, the Buddhist and Jain manuscript paintings take us into a peaceful sanctuary, far from the clamor of the material world. In the philosophy of ancient India, the material world is considered to be an illusion. The purpose of the art of India was to help us lift the veil and look beyond. With the consolidation of the great Mughal Empire in the 16th century under Akbar, a new era dawned upon India. Emperor Akbar was a great patron of the arts, and under his guidance the Indian painter turned his attention to the activities of the world around. Large numbers of portraits of rulers and noblemen began to be made in the Mughal court and in the vast territories under its influence. The glory of individuals, their achievements, battles and hunt scenes soon became the norm in paintings throughout India, along with the traditional and religious subjects. European influences had begun to come in Indian paintings from the time of Akbar. The Portuguese, Father Aquaviva and Father Montserrat from Goa, lived at Fatehpur Sikri and interacted closely with Emperor Akbar. They and other Europeans would have brought a large number of European paintings to the emperor's attention. Many copies were made of European paintings by the Mughal artists. These were the first influences of European art which came to the mainstream tradition of painting in India. From ancient times, India was known to the Western world as a faraway, fabled land. A land of great wealth and color. A land of rich spices and textiles. A land of enchantment and exotic appeal. In 1498, Vasco da Gama from Portugal discovered the sea route to India and reached the shores of Calicut. His arrival ushered in an era of significant changes in every walk of life in India. The Dutch, the French and the English followed the Portuguese in quick succession to set up trading centers in India. By the 18th century, the British East India Company had outmaneuvered the Dutch and the French from most parts of India. The company, as it came to be known, then expanded beyond trading activities into the area of political control. There was an influx of Europeans in India. They came as merchants and officials, as well as travelers and adventurers. Legends and myths surrounding India seemed to come alive for them when they reached Indian shores. Maria Graham, one such European, was struck by the grandeur of the port city of Calcutta. She wrote, "The river was covered with boats of every shape. Villas adorned the banks. The scene became enchanting. and we felt that we were approaching a great capital. The Europeans saw scenes of unimaginable variety and colour. India was seen as a place of great mystery and exotic appeal. The great diversity of costumes and occupations fascinated the Europeans, who wanted to carry back with them some of the native flavour of this land. The Europeans wanted to have a record of their stay in India. They wished to capture all the variety around them through paintings and drawings. They wanted souvenirs to take back home and to send to their relatives and friends. As Lady Nugent said, "I intend to get drawings of everything. I mean to begin a collection of curiosities of all sorts." Paintings which were made by Indian artists for European patrons, who were usually related in some way to the East India Company, have come to be called company paintings. They have a distinct character which sets them apart from all other schools of painting in India.
Colonial period in the late 18th century, which is the beginning of the colonial period, brought in tremendous changes in Indian culture and society, and not least to art. One of the important things that happened was a change in the patronage and the production of art. By the late 18th century, because of the decline of Mughal Empire and the general decline of a number of older states, as well as the rise of various European powers in India, traditional courtly culture was in decline. Of course, that had a tremendous effect on traditional artists, painters particularly, who lost the patronage they enjoyed at these courts until now. So they had to look for economic support elsewhere. When the East India Company, Raj, was established in Bengal, the East India Company officials began to encourage artists and employed them, in fact, to do various kinds of paintings, natural history, ethnographic paintings, as well as various other subjects. A number of painters from, as it used to be called, upcountry, from Patna, Lucknow, and Murshidabad in Bengal, began to gravitate towards Calcutta. And they began to paint for the East India Company.
By the 18th century, representatives of the East India Company were stationed in the courts of the many kingdoms in India. Gradually, the power and importance of the local rulers declined, and political and economic power came increasingly into the hands of these British officials. Indian artists no longer had the traditional patronage of the rulers who had supported their art. The many displaced artists had to look for new patrons, and these were found in the many Europeans who were ready buyers for local art.
But what's striking about this is that although the East India Company officials admired the skills of these Indian miniature painters, they felt at the same time that Indian painters lacked what they called a knowledge of scientific drawing, which really meant the knowledge of single point perspective, consistent lighting, and other tricks of European illusionist art.
The British officers kept diaries and sketchbooks in which they recorded all the details of their stay in this new and exotic land.
And this was a very complex society. In a number of ways, the revenue system baffled the British, the religious customs, the legal system. So in order to, you might say, have better control of India, they had to acquire knowledge of their Indian subjects.
They had drawings made of everything they saw around them. Careful drawings were rendered and painted of the flora and fauna which they found in this new land. These plant studies serve as some of the most excellent botanical studies till today. The Europeans found the world and culture around them in India to be entirely different from what they were used to. They wished to record the many colorful details of this exotic world. They made albums which depict couples belonging to different occupations. There are also paintings of men and women dressed in the costumes of different castes. All these are painted with a keen sense of realism of the observed sort. There is an emphasis on light and shade in the manner of European watercolor paintings. We see many representations of the company officials in the courts of the Indian rulers. They appear always as important and dominant personalities, mainly being entertained by their local hosts. Sometimes we see them sitting in what may be described as a typically Indian manner, and even dressed up in Indian clothes.
In this drawing by a Delhi artist of about 1820, we can see Sir David Ochterlony, who was the British resident at the Mughal court in the early 19th century, seated amidst his women, his courtiers, his attendants, for all the world like a great Mughal prince.
One can imagine that these paintings would have been extremely popular to show to family and friends back home. We also see in some of these company paintings a preoccupation with the depiction of shadows, something that was not seen in earlier Indian paintings. The sense of perspective seen in European paintings is also brought into the company school. There are many vivid depictions of Indian festivals and temples thronging with colorful crowds. The new patrons commissioned the making of many drawings and paintings of the monuments that they saw around them. Mount Stuart Elphinstone writes, "The mosques, the minarets, tombs and gardens of so many Mohammedan cities, the marble courts of the palace of the Mughals, peoples with the recollection of former times, and surrounded with the remains of fallen greatness, could not but affect the imagination." These images of a bygone era are a valuable and interesting record. Often they provide details of architecture that may have been lost with the passage of time. The natural history drawings that were made are among the best in the world. They are comparable to the paintings of Mansoor. He was one of the Mughal Emperor Jahangir's favourite artists and one of the most important natural history painters in Indian art. Company paintings were not made by Indian artists alone. Some of the most renowned artists of this period, who painted typically Indian subjects and scenes, were Europeans. The Daniels and Tilly Kettle made many prints and oil paintings on Indian themes. Landscapes, scenes of the Varanasi Ghats, dancing girls in the local courts. All these and many more found depiction in numerous paintings. Indian artists were apprenticed to assist the Europeans in making these drawings and in printmaking. The British artists made lithographs and etchings in large numbers. Indian artists were trained in the techniques of oil painting. In the years to come, some of the best-known Indian artists, such as Raja Ravi Verma, worked in oils. The paintings made during the Company period reflect the changes that were shaping the political, economic, and social history of India at that time. The local courts were losing their economic and political independence to the foreign rulers. Artists who had till then enjoyed a position of prestige and patronage in the courts were now forced to look for new patrons and buyers for their sustenance. There are instances where artists carried their paintings like common wares in baskets upon their heads and sold them at railway stations and marketplaces. Naturally, they adapted their talents and manner of working to suit the tastes of the new patrons. The school of painting that thus emerged was quite different from any in the past, not only in technique, but also in spirit.
The colonial encounter radically transformed our economy and our society. It would follow that a great deal of the social coherence on which these visions, to which these visions were related, did collapse. So to that extent, I think the continuity of Indian art certainly was ruptured by this. The perennial relationships among artists, patrons and audiences were broken up.
And this kind of art was the bridge between the last of the Mughal courtly art and Rajput and Bahari art, courtly arts, and the later art school produced artists. For instance, Indians began to attend art schools from the 1850s. So basically you might think of a very interesting period when these company painters flourished. This would be roughly from the late 18th century to mid-19th century. My personal subjective view would be that I have not come across a company painter perhaps who can compare with a Daswant or Mansur or Abul Hassan. But you know, this is also to some extent a little bit subjective. It's a matter of taste. Within their own framework, they were very successful. Perhaps we can use another criteria. How successful were they in doing what they're trying to do?
This period had a lasting impact on the course that Indian art was to charter. The Europeans set up many art schools in which the teaching models were based upon the academic styles of the West. A new generation of Indian artists were trained at these schools in the styles and techniques of European painting. In times to come, there would be an interaction between the traditional sensibilities of Indian painters and the growing new influences that came from faraway shores.